Leslie Grantham started acting while he was serving a prison sentence for murder. Brought up in East London, he returned to his roots with his most iconic character, Dirty Den, in EastEnders, which he played between 1985 and 1989. He returned for another 2-year stint in 2003. I wondered if Dirty Den had been an asset or a liability.
I think it's both. It's a combination of both. If it wasn't for Den, I wouldn't be in this position I'm in now.
I don't know that.
Well, it's also he's an iconic character that the public seems to still love. So it doesn't annoy me when people say, "All right, Den," because if it's better to be known for something than known for nothing at all. And there's a lot of far better actors than me who don't get recognised in the street. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really. I don't know, I've always thought that I was very lucky to have a character that was so well written for me by Julia Smith and Tony Holland, and working with Anita Dobson couldn't help but be a success.
And that was more or less your first job, wasn't it?
No, I left Weberdee. My first job was a play for BBC Two, directed by Jim O'Brien, and then I did a season of plays at Coventry. Then I did Jewel in the Crown, and I did lots of other stuff. And because I've been 4 years out of drama school when I got, or 3.5 years out of drama school when I got EastEnders. But I had worked continuously before that, and it's only because of Doctor Who, the chap who cast me in 3 episodes of Doctor Who was setting up EastEnders, and with Julia Smith, a guy called Matthew Robinson. They were looking for this character called Den. He said, I've got a guy I'd like to recommend. And when I went up for it, I read the part of Pete. I thought it's because that's the part they were offering me, but they hadn't actually written the character of Den at that point.
Because they tend to adjust the writing to suit the character. The character becomes popular, they build him up.
That's the way all, because it's the easy option. Sure. And I was very lucky to be well served by Julia Smith and Tony Holland and writers like Bill Lyons and people like that who.
So I know you went to Webber Douglas, and before that you were in prison for a few years. Was that before you went to Webber Douglas? Was there any inclination or interest in the theatre?
Yeah, because I actually had done drama in prison. I'd actually joined the prison group in Wormwood Scrubs, and then when I moved to Portsmouth prison, I did it there, and then I ended up in Lay Hill Prison, Wootton Under Edge, and I continued in the drama group there.
Before then, in your childhood, your teens, were you interested in the theatre? Did you go to the theatre?
I used to sneak off. Obviously, I'm a West Ham fan. And I used to go every Saturday, and then I got hooked on the theatre. So I used to say that I was going to West Ham, go to the little theatre in Bromley. Right. And in those days, you could get the evening paper on a Saturday with the football results on. So I used to scan the football results and the short abbreviated match report. And because when I got back and they said, "How was the match?" "Oh, fantastic! So and so scored." Well, one day, in my stupidity, I picked up this paper. It was only half-time report, so I couldn't. I didn't know the end result. So
when was this? This was the early 60s?
This is 60s, yeah.
So West Ham's heyday.
Yeah.
With Bobby Moore.
Yeah, but I've been supporting West Ham since I was 7, since I was 1954. So.
Who did you like? Which actors? What films and things did you like when you were a child?
Because television in those days was so early for us, we didn't get one until 1953, just after the coronation.
9-inch screen, the magnifier.
The 13-inch pink magnifier on the front.
We had a yellow one.
All right. I sort of brought up on a staple of Bogart and Cagney, and I suppose they're my heroes, and John Wayne. So I'm that sort of.
Do you see yourself in that mould as a bad, heavy?
I don't know. I just think anything, whether it's Ronald Coleman, it's all those black and white movies. I just think they're just absolutely phenomenal. The writing, and the actors I don't know. They play their part so well. Doesn't matter that they look the same in everything they do. And there was no. Just fascinated.
Good casting.
Yeah, I just fascinated to watch.
Did you go to the cinema a lot?
Yeah, the very first thing I ever remember seeing was the cartoon of Peter Pan. And in those days, as you probably remember yourself, you could walk into the cinema at any time.
That's right. Well, you did, yeah, that's right.
And,
this is where we came in.
But I was there all day.
Yeah, I did that
My
as well.
brother and I was there all day. And in fact, my parents had to call the police to say we were missing, and suddenly we turned up. And we were just...
What sort of age was that?
I suppose we were must have been 8 or 9 or something like that. It was just phenomenal. I just fell in love.
And the other thing about getting into A films, had to wait for somebody to take you in.
Yeah,
Did you do that?
yeah, you had to lie and you just had to have a mate's driving licence.
That's right. No, I used to just stand outside and somebody going in, I said, will you take me in?
Yeah, and we used to, obviously...
Imagine doing that now.
Sneak in, used to sometimes sneak in, see if it was an X film and they were saying you wanted to see, like the horror films, And when you were 16 or 15, you weren't old enough to get in. You used to sneak in through the...
Lowered your voice and smoked a stick of fag in your mouth.
Yeah, no, I've always been in love with I think I've always been in love with film. And I've always been in... and that's what sort of gets you, I think, fired up. People say, what's your first experience of theatre? Well, it's pantomime, really, isn't it? The average kid goes to the pantomime, and that's what either hooks them or doesn't. I think with me, it was definitely film, and then.
Where did you see your pantomimes?
First one I saw was in Streatham or Lewisham, and it had Ted Ray, Vic Lewis, and it was Treasure Island, and it had all that water for the ship sinking and the 3D effects, and it was that was phenomenal too. And I remember the other thing that really impressed me and was the film I got taken to at school of the boy at Bolshoi Ballet doing Giselle Gazelle, and it was just a film, and that was just phenomenal. I couldn't believe that these people were just dancing around.
It was the same with me with pantomime, and I came to pantomimes here in the 50s, and that's what hooked me. And I was 4 or 5 years old, I suppose, because at that age it really makes an impression, because pantomimes themselves are sort of fantasy and much larger than life. It really registers. Yeah.
And I'm sure that panto at the moment, or in the last 20, 30 years, something like that, just turn it off, it's really much more accessible to audience than it was when I was a kid, because we lived out in the sticks of, outside of London. But no, I actually believe that you have to educate people to how they should behave in the theatre, but I don't care if it takes them 6 visits if it gets new people into the theatre, because there's nothing on television.
True.
No, but there isn't, is there?
No, there isn't.
Unless you want to buy a house and make it over, or what?
That's right.
Or cook. I think in some places people are going to the theatre more because they actually appreciate that television is not giving them their money's worth.
Have you ever been offered a sitcom? Did you never fancy doing a sitcom?
I did a pilot for one with Jonathan Morris, and it was called Wild Oats. We actually did very well with the viewing figures, but the networks decided to go with the 10 Percenters, which was a dreadful series about an actors agency.
There's so much snobbery involved. And
and it's a bit like our business, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of snobbery in our business. People say, well, they haven't trained. Well, I don't care if they haven't trained, if they can do it. The trouble is a lot of people who have trained who can't do it.
Very true.
So in the end, I think what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way, and this is what this whole interview has probably taken me all this time to say, is it's not about us, it's about the audience. And it's the audience that are the only people that are important. And I felt when I was watching black and white movies that those films made me feel important, because I was honoured to be watching those performances, and what they used to do with the cameras and the lights was phenomenal. Now with all this dreadful video, and
I know
it loses any suspense and danger.
You can't see the joins now with special effects, but you could always see the bits of string on Thunderbirds.
And when I went to see Peter Pan, the cartoon, I felt privileged that these.
Can I ask you very quick, if you don't want to talk about it, fine, but I'd quite like to talk about your prison thing, what led into that, because one of the reasons is because the date that struck me, the 3rd of December 1966, you probably remember the day.
Yeah.
And it was my 21st, so I remember
I'm sorry
as well.
About that. So you're a lot older than me, yeah.
A couple of years. What were the circumstances of that?
Well, I mean, it's all very well it's all documented in my book, but I was in a thing. I've been beaten up badly in the army, and I think that affected me. But there's no excuse for what I did. actually took a man's life. So I'm not actually putting any defence up. It was just something that I think would not have happened at any other time.
How old you were? What, 16, 17?
17, 18, yeah, 18, yeah. I've
Were
been burnt
you
with
a
an
bit of a
iron.
tearaway?
No, I think I was a kid. I was, but not in the army. I had rank, and I was earmarked to be a future RSM. But I'd been badly burnt with an iron and beaten up by a load of there's thugs in walks of life, and
In the army, I'm amazed.
and they'd gone to beat up a half caste corporal, an NCO, and he wasn't there, and because they were fired up, and they came in to chat to me, but then suddenly, next thing I knew, there was an iron in my face, and I was beaten up.
Was this on base?
Yeah. But it's all been documented. So, but there's no excuse for what happened. And then, because of various other things, and I went out and unfortunately a man died. So I can't alter that. I can't bring him back. Even by writing the book, I thought it might be a bit cathartic, but it wasn't. It was actually just by writing it down doesn't actually clear the monkeys on your back, or you've still got to live with that. So I think I've been very lucky. Well, I know I've been extremely lucky to get to the position I've got to with that as an overcoat to wear, and the public seem to have, the majority of the public seem to have taken it and digested it and done was what Julia Smith said, that there for the grace of God, or not that I'm saying anyone, but they seem to have. Not forgotten it, but they don't sort of. It's not
It was
mentioned.
obviously a life-changing experience, but it could be argued if you hadn't done that, you wouldn't have gone on that road, and you wouldn't be here today.
No, because I got into
You'd have been
acting. I got into acting into prison, yeah, and that was because
You went into the army as a career.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then when I then go into prison, that's what got me into acting. So,
Yeah.
so we all travel life's highway. And sometimes you stop off at the Little Chef, or you don't, or you go via Leicester to get from London to Birmingham.
It takes the very smallest thing to set you on a different road.
Yeah, but hopefully eventually if you're made of the right stuff, then you get back to where you were heading in the first place.
Did it radically change you, the event and being in prison for 10 years?
Yeah, I think what you do is you tend to put shutters up, and you only remember the good times. And you get through it, and I was very lucky that I had drama to help me get through it.
Did you do that right from the very beginning?
No, I started off in the boys' wing. Then when we came to the adult wing, I was watching this play that was being put on by prisoners and outside actresses, and I said, probably a bit too loud, God, I could do better than that. And someone said, well, why don't you? So I went to join the drama group. But they didn't take straight people in the prison drama group, because you'd only be there for the women. So I did the stage management course. I did not a course, but I was building sets and making tea. And the leading man was off having a electric shock treatment. So I got roped in to read the part of Tommy in The Anniversary. And I went back to making tea the next night because I got it. I was told I was playing Tommy.
How much time was this? A couple of weeks a year or regular?
Yeah, we play. Well, you rehearsed. You actually rehearsed one or two nights a week, and then eventually, when you learn the lines and everyone else's lines, they bring the females in for a week.
And how many shows would you do in the course of a year?
3 a year, and that was the same in Portsmouth, and that was the same in Lay Hill, which was Wootton Under Edge. So I did quite a few things from The Anniversary all the way to Conduct Unbecoming, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and stuff like that. And I wrote a couple of plays when I was in prison, which were put on in prison.
And you decided while you were in prison that's what you wanted to do when you came out?
Yeah, and everyone thought I was a lunatic.
It must have been difficult actually making the transition coming out of prison and getting into drama school.
I applied for drama schools, and I got a letter back from Webber saying if and when within reasonable time you're released, then we'll come and audition. No, I said I could have an audition, and I did the audition. They said yes, you've been accepted. When you're released within a certain time, and I suddenly did get released. Phoned them up, and they said, well, you can start Tuesday. I said, well, I haven't got any money. So they said, we'll give you a scholarship. And I said, I don't want that. So I painted the German embassy by day and the St Thomas's VD clinic by night to pay my way through drama school. And then while I was at drama school, I cleaned the toilets and the offices, and I went out and cleaned. I got up every morning and cleaned offices in the city, and that's how I paid my way through drama school. That's how much I wanted it.